Welcome to the special Who, What, Why podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Schechtman. Taking place right now in the Nevada desert might very well be defined as the ultimate community event. A city wherein almost everything that happens is created entirely by its citizens who themselves are active participants in the experience. It is Burning Man, and its history since its start in San Francisco in 1986 in so many ways reflects not only changes in the event, which has exploded to nearly 80,000 people participating this year, but it reflects on a much broader level so many changes in our society. The power of elites, money, and influence. In some ways, Burning Man today is the ultimate urban gentrification, an entire city and its population transformed by wealth. We're going to look at the Burning Man phenomenon today with my guest, Daniel Pinchbeck, who probably has written more about the event than any other journalist working today. Daniel Pitchbeck has long been considered a Renaissance man ahead of his time. He's the author of the books Breaking Open the Head, The Return to Quetzalcoatl, Notes from the Edge of Time, How Soon Is Now, and When Plants Dream. He saw around corners long before many others with respect to our ecological crisis and was a one-time executive director of the Center for Planetary Culture. His essays and articles have appeared in every major publication. He's spoken at conferences around the world and had his work featured in a 2010 documentary. He currently writes the Daniel Pinchbeck newsletter on Substack, where this week he has written about his reasons for not attending Burning Man this year. It is my pleasure to welcome Daniel Pinchbeck back to the Who, What, Why podcast. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here. Talk a little bit about your first Burning Man, back when you were there writing for a story for Rolling Stone, which was maybe one of the quintessential stories about the event.
Oh, yeah, I guess that was in 2000. I think it was like 35,000 people then. I think it's more like 80 or 90,000 now, actually. But I was really lucky. That was my sort of introduction. I was an East Coast magazine writer who got interested in psychedelics and shamanism. And I got an assignment to go to Burning Man to write about it for Rolling Stone. And I was blown away. I mean, first of all, it's a very psychedelic community. People really are very interested in exploring consciousness and mysticism. There was incredible art. There was incredible freedom, kind of erotic freedom to express yourself, freedom to connect. It was a revelation for me that humans could act like that.
And then how long until you went back again?
Oh, I started going back every year. I went back the next year. The year after that, I think I wrote about it for Art Forum, which was a big art magazine in New York. So I was like the first person to write about it sort of critically as an art movement.
And that was a very controversial piece, the Art Forum piece.
Well, at that point, the art world wasn't really ready to take Burning Man seriously. And in fact, it was, kind of mocked and reviled in a way. So, and particularly one thing I loved about Burning Man at that point was this sort of anti-commodification aspect. The idea that people would make this work and lavish love and attention and craftsmanship on the pieces, but they would be burned up at the end of the event. So it was like a sort of about not attachment, just process rather than product in a way. That sort of changed a little bit over time. I mean, recently there was a Smithsonian show, and there was a Christie's auction of Burning Man related art. So definitely the artists at Burning Man have been seeking to create more sort of products that fit in with the art market in a way.
And talk about when you saw it start to change. How did it evolve?
That's very complicated because it's just changed slowly over time. I mean, there was, when I interviewed Larry Harvey back in 2000, he was the founder. I asked him what he liked least about Burning Man. He said it was the rave camps who set up the big sound systems at the end of the Playa. And that electronic music element just became bigger and bigger. Then you had camps like Robot Heart, which were a lot of very wealthy East Coasters coming in. I think that Robot Heart was a big shift. Then you had Mayan Warrior. And it became more of a, there was always a certain number of wealthy people there from Silicon Valley and so on. But it became more of a magnet for sort of like the European trust funds, kind of crowd, art cars became like the equivalent of sort of yachts where people would drop like, $500,000 on an art car that, expressed, maybe, their narcissism in a way. So, yeah, I feel over the time it drifted away from sort of spontaneous creativity and became a little bit more of a conscripted cultural sort of parallel culture in a way.
And you talk about in your recent piece the kind of libertarian hedonism which grew larger over time.
Yeah, I mean that's I in my essays like the one in the Substack, if people want to check it out, it was danielpinchbeck.substack.com. I talk about how there always felt there was these tensions in the event between people who were more like mystical anarchists and sort of left-wing, and then sort of hedonistic libertarians who were more right-wing. And there was obviously a lot of crossover, but it feels like over time, the sort of hedonistic libertarian element came to dominate, and Burning Man has become more and more like a sort of giant entertainment complex. Having said that, there are still incredibly amazing things about the event. I mean, one of the beautiful things about it is the 10 principles that include sort of gifting, leave no trace, everyone is a participant, nobody's an observer, which really change and inform how people think and act on the Playa. Really have a beautiful impact on people that they carry on, over into their lives. Another aspect of Burning Man, which is kind of great, is the regional movement. So you actually have splinter Burning Mans all around the world, South Africa, Israel, Europe, and all across the United States. So those are kind of like smaller events that use the same 10 principles. So there's nothing sold during the event, and it's all a gifting economy and so on. And so those are ways that even people who don't have a lot of money or resources can have the same experience, kind of enter this culture.
Talk about the kind of economic divide that has come to be part of Burning Man that in many ways is reflective of the larger culture.
Even when I went in 2000, it was like that a little bit, but it's just become more and more like that. And I think some of it is choices that, so Larry Harvey passed away, and Marion Goodall kind of inherited the event and became, the CEO of a nonprofit, that also has some land out there. And her tendency has been to support, more sort of the sort of corporate people, very wealthy people who end up on Burning Man's board. It's become sort of like an entertainment complex in a way. But at least it's based on participatory experience, communion, shamanism. Maybe in some ways she's protecting, the brand in a way.
You mentioned in the recent piece that parts of it had become almost Disneyfied.
It's a little standardized now. I mean, I'm in my work, I write a lot about psychedelics and shamanism, and I write about people like Terence McKenna. And McKenna talked about how culture is actually our enemy, that, things start out as like spontaneous. And then when they turn into a culture, they become kind of like hardened and more rigidified and crystallized. So at first, my sense is that Burning Man was a very free space. People would go there and kind of create operas or performance art or whatever. And over time, as it's attracted the sort of, global wealthier set, it becomes a little bit more of a rigid culture where people look at each other or look at pictures like, okay, I should dress exactly like this and buy this $500 coat and that, $1,000, hat or whatever, because that's how you fit in. And then also when I'm there, I should go to see this DJ at 5 a.m. because that's what everybody's doing. So it develops its own kind of social hierarchies that replicate the kind of social hierarchies that are often based on class divisions that we find in the outside world, but with more interpenetration. Like there are people who, can go from other worlds and connect in different ways. So, it's still better, but it's in some ways, it imitates the dominant culture.
For those that know less about it, talk just a little bit about the experience of being on the Playa during Burning Man.
No, it's really extraordinary because you definitely have this feeling that there's this liberated culture. A lot of people there are astonishingly beautiful, astonishingly friendly. There are all these different events going on, rituals, readings, talks, theatrical events, music. So you can really workshops. You can kind of choose, if you want to explore, workshops into like Tantra or into nonviolent communication or different healing modalities or learning about crypto. So it also has this, sense of being this like mini university of possibility. And some areas are, it's more playful. It could be like playing with gender roles or kink or creativity, art projects or whatever. Yeah, then the art is really amazing. It sort of tends to be these kind of giant, pop sculptures or sculptures that are really exploring formalism with lighting. Now that I'm talking about it, I wish I was there, to be honest. Yeah, so it has all sorts of amazing things going on there.
And you decided not to go this year. Tell us why.
A number of reasons. I mean, I've gone through, as I wrote in my Substack piece, like different fluctuations around it. I mean, sometimes I feel that I've already gone like 18 times. Like maybe it's okay for me to let other people have the experience. I don't always have to be the hog, and it's like, and I'm very concerned around the ecological emergency. So it's like always traveling everywhere seems to be part of the problem, this kind of entitlement that we can always like pursue these exotic experiences, if we have the capital. I don't know. I just, and then also I like to go there when I really feel that I have a book or a message or a mission. And, I didn't really feel that way right now. So I thought it was a good year for me to wait it out and just do my work and hopefully go back with a great inspiration next time or sometime soon.
And you mentioned again in the Substack piece that you also had a little fear of missing out.
Yeah, I mean, of course, because it's very beautiful and very ritualistic. And when you go there, it does. Like when you're a burner, quote unquote, you go there every year. It really does kind of give a shape to your year. The burning of the man, and the next day the burning of the temple. These are like and the ancient world, they had kind of rituals and celebrations and ceremonies like this that were annual. So there's that aspect of it. Then there's the aspect of just that because I went for so many years, I have so many layers of friends from different times will go there. So I don't get, by not going there, I'm not getting a chance to see all these amazing people who I haven't seen, since the pandemic, since I haven't been out to the West Coast.
Given that it hasn't happened for 2 years because of the pandemic, do you expect it would be any different this time around? I mean, there's the obviously pent up demand.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that it'll be a really inspired event, that people will be really fired up to be there. And, but it's always a very inspired event. I mean, people always kind of give their all. And I don't know exactly how different it will be in that sense.
Many people that go, particularly those going for the first time, often come back and talk about the way the event has changed them, that has altered them in some way. Talk about your sense of that, what people mean when they talk about that.
Yeah, I think that it's, for me, it was really incredible to see that, you could have, 50,000 or 70,000 or 80,000 people, experiencing this shared kind of communion, this sort of escape from some of the ideas of materialism and consumerism. Although that's paradoxical because there's a lot of buying stuff that goes into being there. But it feels like it does feel a bit like a pilgrimage, like a spiritual communion. And then, this idea that art and gift is the center of your reality rather than trying to figure out how to make a buck or whatever, that also is profoundly shifting. And then, frankly, many people also take psychedelics and psychoactive substances there, which amplify the whole experience and can give you even deeper sense of like, union with, deep time or the sense of a unity, unified field of consciousness, or magic or psychic potential. It gives you a great sense, kind of like, like the Beatles probably were for people in the late 60s, of like, that humanity has this tremendous untapped potential for joy and creativity that we really have not even scratched the surface of what we're capable of.
With what's going on with the climate, it's getting hotter and hotter each year out there in the Nevada desert.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very dry heat out there. I mean, I guess there is a heat wave there, but I mean, the last time I looked at the weather report for this week at Burning Man, it was perfect. I mean, there also can be, deluges out there, but those also can become like bonding experiences. If there's a huge storm, everyone has to like huddle together. It also, and then when it ends, that also creates a sense of connection. It is a survival experience for sure. I mean, it's quite an environment to be there. But yeah, I mean, that was always, I mean, when I wrote in Breaking Open the Head, my first book about going to Burning Man, it did have this like foreshadowing of this sort of global warming apocalypse of a time when the world has become kind of like a desert and we don't really have animals and plants around so much, where we still have each other, we still have human creativity and consciousness. It felt like an eerie foreshadowing of something ahead. So, I don't know. I remember that strong feeling that I've always had when I go there. I don't know if that's the case or not, but surely, I do feel that, the ecological crisis is the most significant thing that we have to pay attention to and try to focus on right now. And in some ways, Burning Man gives people clues, and in other ways, it's a distraction.
What are some of your most memorable moments from all of the Burning Man events you've attended?
Yeah, that's a good question. It kind of blurs together into one thing in a way. I mean, had, beautiful friendships spark up there, wandering across the whole desert with amazing, genius artists and characters, driving. One year I drove a little art car. What was it exactly? It was a golf cart that had been kind of like, I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was a Hello Kitty golf cart or something. But yeah, just driving all night with all these crazy characters, people coming in and out. Just like, the sense of, incredible freedom that you can just jump on. They have these art cars, these huge vehicles that often have like chill spaces and dance spaces and DJ booths. But you kind of jump on them and meet a whole new crowd of people and go off on a whole different adventure. And some people will never even make it back to their camp until the end of the week. They'll just find a whole new group of people and switch allegiances in a way. But that's part of the fun. It's very chaotic.
Explain to people how it's set up in terms of the camps and how that works.
The Burning Man organization, creates kind of the infrastructure. So the shape of the whole festival, the streets and the street lamps and the porta potties, obviously. And then you can either just go individually, you can go in a camper van or just in a car with a tent, which, I've done that also. It's, kind of pretty rough because it's extremely hot and dusty there during the day, or you can go in an RV by yourself, or you can go in an organized camp, in which case everybody pitches in to have maybe a group, a chef for the community, or it could be, everybody takes turns cooking, but they provide the kitchen and the refrigerator and the infrastructure, like a center area. They have their own sound system. Often they have their own art car. They have their own kind of, thing going on in a way. And some of those, they really range across the spectrum. Some of them are a few $100s to join. Some of them are like 20,000, 50,000, probably at this point even like 100, 150,000, where where you're living for a week with celebrities, rap stars, VCs, investment bankers, and they've kind of created their own private little kind of enclave within Burning Man.
Little gentrification going on in those places.
A lot of social stratification and a lot of super wealthy people who tend to put up velvet ropes around their private experiences and stuff. Yeah.
Looking forward to going next year?
I think so. Although, I got over my FOMO, and now I have to say that I'm kind of appreciating not being, covered in dust and extremely hot and, meandering, someplace in the middle of the night. So we'll see. If I have a group of friends to go with next year, I will do it. And I am looking forward to going back. What the hell?
Daniel Pinchbeck, I thank you so much for sharing all of this with us here on the Who, What, Why podcast.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Thank you. And thank you for listening and joining us here on the Who, What, Why podcast. I hope you join us next week for another radio Who, What, Why podcast. I'm Jeff Sheckman. If you like this podcast, please feel free to share and help others find it by rating and reviewing it on iTunes. You can also support this podcast and all the work we do by going to whowhatwhy.org/donate.